Don't style your hair again without watching this video first. See, most people often spend so much time styling their hair only to either have it go limp and flat quickly after, or never even get the volume that they wanted in the first place. And the problem is, they just don't know that it's their styling process which is actually causing these problems, and how some simple changes can actually create long-lasting volume. So in this video, I'm gonna share the key tricks that I used to help Alice go from this to this. My name is Justin Hickox, and I've been a licensed hairstylist for 30 years, and I've helped thousands of women finally understand how to style their hair. So hang out with me while I walk you through a recent styling I did so I can show you all of the little tricks to getting volume, even in thin, fine hair. You're about to see Alice, and you're gonna think, wait a minute, her hair's thick. That's because she's got a lot of fine hair. So I'm gonna show you how to create volume, and these tricks will work whether your hair is fine and thin or fine and dense. If you can see your scalp, I've got you covered too. Okay, now before we dive into the actual styling process, there's a couple other things that are really important about how you create volume. One is that you don't want just big hair. You want volume in the right areas so that you can accentuate what you want to accentuate about your face shape. See, just big hair, lots of volume by itself, doesn't always achieve that. It can actually look flat because it just looks so round. It doesn't offset any of the volume in certain areas because there's just volume everywhere. And to kind of piggyback on that, many times it's actually not about how much volume you create, it's actually about removing volume. Taking volume out of some areas can create a contrast that makes other areas feel like they've got much more volume. Okay, so let's walk you through this blow dry process so you can see step by step what I do and how I create volume that will actually last. The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the hair is equally damp before you apply any products to it. And this is really important to ensure that the other products distribute evenly or how you want to. If there's dryness in one area and dampness in another, the products are going to attach to the damp hair very differently than they're going to attach to the dry hair. And that is going to make them react completely differently in those different areas of your hair. So if you allow your hair to dry at all before you apply product, just go back through and dampen it all down so that it's evenly damp. Or otherwise, just get out of the shower, towel out your hair to get the most of the moisture out, and then apply products to it immediately. Okay, and also, side note, I'm gonna link all of the products that I use and tools in the description, as well as a pinned comment. You guys always wanna know, so I figured tell you what I'm using so you don't have to search for it. The next step is that we always wanna use a heat protectant. Now, I use this one right here because it has conditioning qualities, as well as it doesn't seem to weigh the hair down like some others do. With that said, we still want to try and keep these types of products off of the roots as much as possible, and mainly on the mid shaft through the ends so that we can minimize any potential negative effects that they could have on creating root lift. All right, now the next step is that we must use some sort of volumizing product. Otherwise, you won't have any foundation to create, let alone keep any volume. Okay, now when it comes to volumizing aids, there's something very important that I want you to understand here because there's different products for different amounts of fine hair. So follow me here. I've got 3 here that I use. And if I'm totally honest, it kind of depends on the person that I would recommend that you use this. You can tell I use them because I probably could have cleaned these off. That's so gross, I'm sorry. It's just product. So the first one that I use is the Caviar Anti-Aging Mousse. Now, I like this because it feels very soft in the hair, but it also doesn't give you a ton of volume. So for people that want to create some lift, but not a ton, because you cannot stand the feeling of any sort of texture in your hair, then this would be an option that would help you create a little bit of extra volume, but you're not gonna get a ton out of it because it doesn't have the ability to create a ton. Now, if you wanna step up to the next one, this is the Stay High Mousse. This is actually what I used on Alice. You're definitely gonna feel more of this in your hair, but you're also gonna get a lot more volume. Just be mindful about how much of this that you use. And if your hair is already soft in texture, you might find that you actually get a better result with this. Whereas if your hair is very damaged and already kind of grabs a comb, not from tangles, but just because of damage, then this actually might be a little harder for you to use, and you might want to use something that's a little bit lighter. Now, my wife has a dense amount of fine hair, and that is a very different texture, often needing different products. So for her, she loves this Living Proof Perfect Hair Day. It's a 5-in-1, so this helps to give her more volume. So she'll actually mix this with something like this or this. So she'll use something like a mousse for a little stronger of a mousse at the roots. And then she'll put this on when her hair is damp from mid-shaft to the ends to help hold the wave or any of the bend that she creates during the styling process. She swears up and down by this stuff. And I will say that if you've got a dense amount of fine hair, you want more control over those mid-shaft and ends because it's gonna help hold the volume that you create. Now, when you apply it, start with the areas that you wanna see the most volume in. This is when you have the most product in your hands, so apply the most product to where you want the most volume. Then work the rest through the other areas. Now, if there are places you want less volume because you want other areas to look like they have more volume in comparison, then apply little or no volumizer to those areas. No need to waste product on an area that you don't want to see volume in anyway. Side note, I actually made an embarrassing mistake when I was styling Alice's hair. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later, and it actually gives me the opportunity to share a little industry secret with you on how I fixed it. Oh, real quick, and by the way, if you like this video or if you're getting any value from it, do me a massive favor, hit that subscribe button. Or really, if you think a friend could benefit from this, share it with them. That would be huge. And let me know what you think. Join the conversation. I always like sometimes I like knowing what you think. Sometimes people are just mean, but not you. You're nice. You're friendly. You're one of the people that is awesome. That sounded so thirsty. Okay, the next step is to get the moisture out, right? And there's 3 key things that you need to know about this process. First, if you want the back to lay flat and not flip out, turning little circles with the blow dryer, it's a little trick that I learned years ago, works miracles. Second, you can use your fingers or you can use a brush. Either way totally works. But if you've been around this channel, then you've heard me talk about the volumizer brush. That's what I'm using on Alice's hair here, and I love them. It's mainly because they help to get the roots up off of the scalp, and they have these little slits in them so that they allow more air to pass through, which then helps to actually dry the hair faster and make the whole process more efficient. And they're not expensive brushes, and they last forever. These things are actually really cool. There's always one of these with me, 100%. Third, ideally, you would tip your head upside down to help get those roots lifted. But if you can't do that, just be aware of making sure that the roots are gonna be heading in the opposite direction of how they're going to end up lying after you style them. Aside from that, you're just trying to get your hair basically about 80% dry at this point. Now, after you get your hair about 80% dry, if possible, we want to round brush it. Now, the reason is we want to get a bit of bend in your hair because bend is where we create volume. See, most people think that volume comes from just using product and then getting some root lift. But in reality, that's barely 25% of the overall results. 75 comes from just getting bend from the mid shaft through the ends. If the round brush that you're using is too small, it can end up creating just a little bit of curl at the very ends and no real bend from the mid shaft down. This actually makes it really hard to create volume because it just kind of gets big at the very bottom, and that's not usually where we want the actual volume. So I prefer to use a round brush that only allows your hair to wrap around it roughly 1.5 times. Unless your hair is like quite long, at which point you're just gonna use the largest round brush that you can find. Whenever you're using any brush, but especially a round brush, you should always ensure that your blow dryer is pointing that air down the hair shaft, not directly up the hair shaft, which is just gonna cause frizz, or at the hair shaft, especially if you're dealing with fine hair of any density. Fine hair is just far more susceptible to damage and breakage, and therefore we don't have the luxury of not paying attention to the tools that we use and ensuring that whatever we are using is the least damaging that it possibly can be. You know the blow dryer I'm using is the Life and Swift. I've been a big fan of these for the last few years. The thing that I love about these is they create a ton of air pressure with very little heat, so they dry the hair very quickly, while at the same time not adding heat to it to do so, just by using the air pressure to do so. Putting air directly at the hair shaft can cause extreme damage and melt your hair flat off. I've actually in the salon seen worse damage from that than I have from using irons. so they're less damaging and more efficient. Now, see how I'm moving the brush through the hair? I don't just wrap the brush up in the hair and then hold it still. I actually move the brush. Now, this is not only helping to smooth the hair out, but it's also helping to distribute some of the product so you get less of that feeling of having texture in your hair. Now, if you can learn this skill, it will make a world of difference, both in how your hair looks when it's done, but also how it feels when it's done. Now, if you noticed, I started blow drying our hair from the very bottom in the back, and then I moved my way up the head. Kind of think of it like you're building a house. We want to start with the foundation and then work our way up to the roof. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And then typically, I actually just finish with the bang area. But some people actually start with the bangs because they feel that it gives them more control if they don't allow their bangs to dry during the rest of the drying process. And that is absolutely fine. If that makes it easier for you, rock with it, do that. But also you can do it my way and that will work as well. You also have the ability at the very end, if you feel like your bangs are a tiny bit too dry, to kind of hit them once with just a spritz of water, barely add a little bit of moisture because a little bit goes a long way, and then dry them that way. Also, notice how I pick the hair up off the scalp at the roots so that they're actually parallel with the head? See, think of this as a safeguard. If you instead pull them down flat against your head, it will take away any root lift that you created earlier. Now, when I style the bangs, I always round brush them into the face like we're gonna wear a really heavy bang, regardless of how we actually want to style them in the end. This is something that I call non-directional styling, and it allows me the ability to style them kind of however I want after we get the hair dry. So if you want total control over how you style your bangs, round brush them like you're gonna wear a heavy bang and then comb them off with your fingers afterward. Now, don't worry, okay? We're gonna get to that whole part about how you hide your scalp. Just stick around. Okay, now if you're more comfortable using an iron in your hair than you are using a round brush, you totally still can, and you can definitely get volume with them. Now, for Alice, I actually wanted to use an iron on a handful of sections just to get, I guess, a bit more of a polished overall finish. If you're a person that struggles with getting wave in your hair with a flat iron, these function like a curling iron, but are actually a flat iron. And there's something about it, for my wife at least. I've tried to show her multiple times how to use a flat iron to create wave. For some reason, cannot get it, and that's fine. But the minute we got this, all of a sudden it's like it clicked for her, and she uses this, no problem, gets the exact wave she wants every time. It's kind of a little game changer. I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect it to be, but it's been great. Now, if you're gonna use one though, I want you to make sure that it's set to 300 degrees or less. And ideally, it should have ceramic plates because they distribute heat far more effectively and are more efficient, which causes less damage. Now, when you use it, do you notice how I start about an inch from the roots, then move through the hair at an even pace all the way through the ends? This is really important because speeding through those ends will actually force you to go over them more and more just to get them polished, which actually is gonna cause more damage in the long run. Also, do you notice how I draw this like kind of big C shape with the iron? This mimics the bend that we want for volume and will help to keep the flat iron from actually flattening out the hair. I always wanna pretend like I don't make mistakes. The fact is, I do. I know, shocker. In fact, my wife will definitely attest to that, I make them all the time. I made the mistake of using too much of this volumizing mousse in the crown, and it made it very challenging to style. To the extent that I was pretty close to just starting all over, washing her hair, and just saying, we need to begin again. But if you ever get to the point where you feel like you've just got too much product in your hair and it feels too producty, and you just don't want to wash your hair and kind of start all over again, you can actually add a little bit, and I mean a little bit, of light hair oil through that section, and it'll actually break some of that product down and make it feel a lot softer, and it'll make it more pliable so you can actually like get your brush through it again and actually restyle it. So it's a little trick that I use often. You just wanna make sure that you don't use a heavy oil and that you don't use too much. A little bit is gonna go a long way for this. Okay, the oil that I used was whey. I've been using this a long time, and typically it doesn't build up or weigh hair down like a lot of oils can. I also use this on wet hair all the time, mid-shaft to ends, to help kind of smooth the hair out during the drying process, but also to give it a little bit of shine. And I've actually used it on fine hair for that exact same process and didn't feel like it weighed the hair down, so it actually works well in that scenario as well. Okay, now the final step. At this point, you've got your hair technically styled, but now you need to shape it, if you will. Just use your hands and start just bringing all of your hair back up off your face, okay? Just comb it all off your face, and then just use your fingers to pull down the hair that you want to be styled forward. And the key, this is a key tip here that I learned actually from my mom when I was first starting to do hair, because she styled it very well. She told me, don't worry about it. If you feel like it's not working the way you want it to work, mess it all up, start over again. You're gonna get it into place, and I've done that ever since. I actually find that oftentimes when I do this, it ends up just looking better and better and better each time. I typically find that I just have to stop and let the client go, because I always tell them I'm gonna keep on picking at it and it's never gonna heal. That probably is not a good analogy, but you get my point. Okay, I said in the very beginning, if you're trying to hide your scalp, this is my absolute go-to. Topics, I have talked about this so many times. These are hair fibers, and you can actually spray them in. I use a little top like this. This actually comes like a little salt and pepper shaker. Then I bought this top separately, apply it, and you can see it just does that, right? So it just kind of blows out this very, very fine mist of dark color or whatever color. They come in all sorts of different colors. So you can easily match your hair. And then I just spray it wherever you're thin, or wherever, for me, wherever I'm thin. And it's amazing at hiding the scalp, makes your hair look immensely thicker. And it doesn't really build up. It just rinses out the next day or the next time that you shampoo. But at the same time, the interesting thing to me has been that if I go out in the rain, it doesn't seem to like drip down my forehead or anything like that. It just kind of stays there until I get in the shower. I don't know if there's like a certain amount of water it needs or whatever, but comes out fine when you need it to and stays around when you need it to. It's been a favorite. It's definitely a crowd favorite. Okay, now, one of the most important tips that I can give you on creating volume is actually not about the style. It's about the cut. Now, understanding why you might want to choose a certain hairstyle or shape is absolutely paramount. Now, if you want to learn more about why we did what we did with Alice's hair, and you want to see how she reacts to what we did, you can go ahead and check that out right there, because I really think you're going to like it. So head over there, and I'll see you over there. Thanks for hanging out. Bye. I make too many mistakes is the problem. That's the problem.